Okay, so it's been a few days since the episode 8's release. Actually, it's the 23rd as I'm speaking this, so 3 days. And even now, I have so many thoughts, I have so many questions, and I also have a few theories about what might be happening. First things first, before I get into anything, my prediction about how the episode was going to start was completely wrong. And like I said in the video, how did I even come up with that? Trailers, especially for the digital circus, are intentionally misleading. And so it was kind of nearsighted of me to just take it at face value. And speaking of face value, I am really bad at analyzing things and digging into things and really noticing symbolism, that sort of stuff. I'm really bad at that. I tend to just want to take things at face value. And this show has really challenged me and taught me that everything is not quite as it seems. And so excuse me if I say anything today that is just a little bit bland or basic or whatever have you. So with that being said, I want to talk about episode 8's implications for Soma Theory. And if you don't know, real quickly, Soma Theory is essentially the idea that the main casts don't have physical bodies to go back to, and that they are simply just digital copies of a person's consciousness. So you put on the headset, it scans your consciousness, and you as a person be like, okay, that's weird, nothing would have happened. But your consciousness has been scanned into the program. So essentially, the Soma Theory means that there's no exit. And after having watched the episode like fucking 40 billion times, there's quite a few details, to me at least, that suggest that Soma Theory is reality. I'm gonna try and start at the least damning piece of evidence and work my way up to the most damning piece of evidence. Obviously, if there's anything that I might have missed, or if something is more damning than another, let me know. Okay, so the least damning piece of evidence that Soma Theory might be real, for me at least, is in Kane's wonderful musical number. He says something along the lines of, "Can't you see that this great marquee is the only place that you're ever gonna be?" And like I said, I tend to take things at face value, and taking that at face value, this great marquee is the only place they're ever gonna be, meaning there is no exit. I'd go as far as to say that line might be foreshadowing that there is no exit. Next, I want to bring up another line Kane also says. In his office, he says,
"I made a program that creates a body perfectly encapsulating their mind files, and they hate those too!"
Now, to me, this line suggests that their minds have been scanned. The minds of a person has been scanned and put into files in the program. This doesn't necessarily mean that there is or isn't a body to go back to me. This line could still mean that there is an exit, but it pretty much confirms that their minds are sorted into files that Kane has access to. Also, on that same thought, I'm curious to know if these people's rooms were also created, quote unquote, perfectly encapsulating their mind files. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes. My third piece of evidence is Ragatha's appearance. When Ragatha puts on the headset, we see her pop in.
What?
That whole scene, I think it implies Soma Theory is real, and it also doesn't imply Soma Theory is real. But assuming that Soma Theory is real, this implies Soma Theory is real because she was with a group when she put on the headset. So, listen, my whole theory about this is, in episode 5, Ragatha said she was in real estate. So, my assumption would be that maybe she was giving a tour to the cleared out CNA office to a potential buyer, maybe wanting to buy the building, or a group of potential buyers wanting to buy that building. She finds the headset there, which isn't supposed to be there since the building's cleared out. And naturally, she gets curious, puts it on, and it scans her consciousness. Now, I have a lot of thoughts after this. Okay, so just bear with me here as I'm trying to gather my thoughts. There's a few. First, I want to point out, if I was in a group of people and someone put on a headset and then suddenly they just disappeared completely, I'm positive that I might also try to put on the headset because, what the heck just happened, right? If you were in a group of people, you put on a headset, you disappeared. I'm sure at least one person would also put on the headset after you, wondering what the hell just happened and how you just disappeared, meaning they would follow you in. And considering nobody followed Ragatha in to the circus means two things. They all just up and ran, they got scared, oh my god, this woman just disappeared in front of us, run. Or she didn't disappear, nobody got curious, nobody actually even figured anything, and they continued on with their day, completely unaware that a consciousness has just been scanned. Now, the idea that Ragatha puts on the headset and then suddenly falls into some sort of coma or some sort of vegetative state, it might make sense that nobody followed her in then, because seeing that Ragatha is now down for the count, nobody also wants to be that way, so they probably won't put on the headset. So, like I said, there's still a little bit of a possibility that there is a body to go back to, but considering everything that I know about human nature and also the show, I feel like there is no body to go back to, and everybody in that group in the real life, including Ragatha herself, continued about their day as if nothing happened. And that whole situation could also make sense if Soma Theory is not real. The whole situation of the CNA building becoming abandoned makes a lot of sense. So in episode 5, once again, we also hear that Pomni was exploring abandoned buildings. CNA building was abandoned. When she explored it, found the headset, put it on. So it makes sense that the building would have been abandoned because nobody wants to buy that. Nobody wants to go there. Why would somebody want that building where people keep disappearing, right? A group of programmers gone. A random real estate woman gone. Jackson Gangle gone. I'd assume that after Jackson Gangle building gets abandoned, like literally nobody wants to go in there anymore because people keep disappearing. And then by the time Zubul gets to it, it's abandoned. Then Pomni gets to it, it's still abandoned. And then now we're left off here. Anyways, my next piece of evidence, which I think is quite damning, is the file on the computer when Kinger is hacking the mainframe, when Kinger is being the goat that Kinger is. There's a file on the computer, the CA neural scans. That's straight up telling us that there are scans of their brain. I think that this frame right here tells us a lot about how Soma Theory could be the actual reality of the show. But there is the word obsolete underneath it. That could indicate maybe they stopped doing the brain scans. Well, maybe they stopped doing the brain scans, but they didn't stop the program, which caused the brain scans. So the brain scans still continued if you put on the headset, even though they stopped trying to do that. I don't know. That's I don't know. I feel stupid even suggesting anything because I'm so useless. This is silly. Anyways, my final piece of evidence that I think is the most damning in my mind is during Kinger's lore dump, when he talks about Scratch, he mentions Scratch had a brain tumor.
Either due to pure brilliance or the tumor in his head.
Then, after he mentions the tumor, he mentions that Scratch was trying to create something.
He was trying to make something. What was it?
Now, there's a lot that you can think of this. My personal thoughts, after having 3 days to think about it, I think this program was created as a way for Scratch to get away from his brain tumor. And what's a great way to do that? If you can separate yourself from your body. So, you don't have to suffer with a brain tumor, you don't have to die, and you can live much, much longer, if not forever, in this digital circus. I find it interesting, and I'm not going to theorize on this because it's too vague for me. I can't find the symbolism meaning in this, but I find it interesting, and I know that there is symbolism in the fact that it zoomed in on the muffin when he mentioned trying to create something. There's got to be something there. I'm just too narrow-minded to figure it out. So, with all that being said, those are all my thoughts and theories and ideas that I have. I have some ideas about the situation behind Kane's death, if anybody is interested in hearing that. You know, the whole Fat Finger versus another entity versus Kane himself. Maybe, yeah, some sort of, something. I have a lot of ideas on that. Let me know if you want to see that. Otherwise, those are my Soma Theory thoughts.